Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Matt, can you just confirm you're hearing me okay?
Good morning, good afternoon. Yes, Simon, we can see you and hear you very well.
Fantastic. So welcome to everybody who's joined us today for what is the 7th dashboard training session over the last 2 weeks. There are certificates available for participation even in the training. For those of you who are sat through all 7, I think you probably deserve a medal as well. We'll look into that after the sessions are finished. Yesterday we looked at reputation monitoring and the importance of this, especially in times of global pandemic and narrowing funnels of guest pipelines. And the plan today is for a continuation of the session yesterday, chaired by my colleague Francisco Martinez. Francisco is a key account director here at Hoist Group, who is responsible for a number of our most important relationships, and also responsible for also responsible for development of our Hoist dashboard, what we're presenting today. So Francisco, is going to jump onto that in a moment. We also have on the panel today a number of subject matter experts. I'm Simon Jansen, I'm Chief Strategy Officer here at Hoist Group. We also have Hilal Alam, who is the product manager for all things dashboard. And we have a customer success manager in Luigi Cardillo, all of whom have presented at some stage during these sessions. So if you have any questions for us today, you'll notice on the Zoom taskbar that there is a QA button. Click on the QA button, type your question into that, and we will address those questions once we get to the end of the initial presentation. The initial presentation format will be, for those of you familiar, sorry to repeat myself, for those of you who are new to it, will be about 20 minutes of actually walking through the dashboard itself, after which we will open up the floor to questions, and we'll address those questions with the subject matter experts in turn. So I think probably best now to hand you over to Francisco and to talk about how we can bring about a reputation improvement.
Thank you, Simon. My name is Francisco Martinez. I'm Key Account Director at Hoist, and I'm going to be holding today the second session of a reputation, where we are looking at how to implement a reputation management plan for your hotel. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you can.
Yes, I can see your screen, the presentation.
Okay, perfect. Let's put this down here. And there you are. The agenda for today is we're going to basically, as said, going to look at how the dashboard can be used to implement a good reputation management plan. We're going to first take a quick look at the key steps that need to be taken into account for a good reputation management plan. And then we will go into the dashboard and take a look at 3 things: setting targets, answering reviews, and following correction plans. Before we go into the dashboard, as said, let me just point out a couple of topics about reputation management. I'm having in mind the idea of how a hotel that is going to start managing reputation now would start with a simple and easy to implement plan. I've just devised seven tips that I think would be very helpful. Obviously, if your hotel is already running such a process, you will be using a more complex implementation, and we would be happy to discuss as well how we can help with that. But I'm focusing this first course lesson in just how you would start from scratch. And the first step, as in any management plan that you would implement, is to set and quantify achievable targets for your reputation score. And what you need for that is basically, you need a reputation index, and that is what the dashboard can provide you. This is very important because you will be tracking the result, and then that will let you see month after month, year after year, how well you are doing, how well your improvement plan is delivering. Now, second, and also very important, although more on the organizational aspect of it, if you are planning to have a reputation management plan, it's important that you involve all the departments in the hotel. Improvements are not going to be immediate. They will be felt over time, and they will depend on consistent and sustained action by different departments from the hotel. So they need to understand what is asked from them. They need to understand the impact that this has in the overall hotel business, and they need to have an open communication flow. Reputation scores and reviews contain a lot of information about your hotel that is often pertinent to this or that department, and having a very open and critical flow of information to everybody as it is posted, making them know what customers are highlighting as good or bad relating to the delivery of that department, is always a very good recommendation to start a cooperation plan, because it will create trust across all departments if you share the information openly and timely. Now, the third one, and this is where we really get into the tactics of it, is you need to read and answer reviews every day. You need to read your reviews as they come. Normally, the wait's done is on the morning of the next day, somebody in the hotel reads all the reviews from yesterday. And for that, again, you need a tool that collects everything into a single repository where you can go and check it every morning. Then after that, you need to think what you're going to answer to, and you need to answer them correctly and timely. Finally, also very important, and we won't talk much about that, but it's fairly interesting for hotels to incentivize reviews. Normally, hotels tend to do this through email campaigns and hotel staff. That is normally front office staff. When you have a guest that's leaving, he's happy. Oftentimes it's good to say, well, if you have had a nice day, we would appreciate if you leave a review in TripAdvisor or in Booking.com or wherever. Similarly, many hotels in their after stay emails post the link so that guests can actually leave a review easily. This is important for two reasons. For the first one, because if you have very few reviews, your scores are going to be very sensitive to the possibility that somebody leaves one or two bad negative reviews. Sometimes because there's a glitch in some service, and the impact of that can be significant, because if it doesn't get averaged amongst a wide number of reviews, these bad scores would drag your index down for months to come and will impact your bottom line significantly. Now, on top of that, there is the fact that it's well known that negative reviews tend to be left almost always, because guests, when they're in a negative mood, they tend to leave the review to settle that way. On the other hand, positive reviews oftentimes just don't get posted for laziness, for lack of attention to the fact that it might be interesting. A lot of your guests may be very happy, but simply didn't thought of leaving a review. So what happens when you lightly incentivize reviews, is that whatever you generate will most likely float up your index values, because for the most part, there will be positive reviews. Fifth, and also important, is not only to follow your reputation scores, but also to follow those of your competitive set. This will help you understand in which aspects your competitors are overperforming compared to you. It will basically let you see where it hurts, because probably those are the aspects that guests will take more into consideration when they have to make a choice against one of the hotels in the competitive set. So it's very important that you understand those handicaps so that you prioritize that they are resolved and addressed. It's also important that you understand where you're performing better than your competitors. That is always good ammunition for your marketing and for your communication efforts. And it lets you understand very well how you stand as regards your competitors. I have to say that this is not yet in the dashboard, but the development is already running, and it will be available within the coming 2 months. Finally, it is important that once you understand and identify your problems, your major issues in the hotel, you actually work on a correction plan for each major issue. And then you identify a set of actions for correcting it, and then track it to completion, and also track that the impact on your reputation, that the fact that you're getting negative reviews for that is also corrected. So not only do you need to track that the operational issue is solved, but also that no additional bad reviews are being posted because of that. We're going to look as well into the dashboard as regards that aspect. Now, just before we go, just one little point about answering reviews. And the curve I'm posting there also comes from an analysis by Cornell University. And what it basically paints is the percentage of reviews answered compared to the revenue, the RevPAR of the hotel. What this curve is basically saying, and it's an average over a wide variety of hotels. So probably you can't extrapolate with accuracy to any single hotel, but it gives you an overall idea that it is bad not to answer reviews, but it may be also bad to try to answer all the reviews. Now, this needs to be qualified. If you're not having a lot of reviews, well, answering them all is not going to have an impact. But the moment you have a very good flow of reviews, trying to answer them all might be a bit overkill. In the same way that if you don't answer, you're kind of telling your guests that you don't care, and that is a bad message. If you answer too much, you may be conveying the sensation that you're trying to control the conversation. And that is not particularly good, because it may cause your guests to shy away from these online platforms if they feel they're not an open media to discuss. Now, overall, 40% seems to be the sweet spot, but this is really a very wide-ranging figure. It may be 60%, it may be 30%. It just gives you an idea. Always answer the negative ones. That for sure, these are the important ones. These are the ones where guests are expecting to see a reaction, where online customers are looking at how you are showing respect. And the best measure to show respect starts by answering a negative review. Always those. Sometimes the positives as well. It's important that the GM answers. This sends a very positive message. It's telling everybody that the person in charge of the whole hotel is worried by the perception of the service that the guests have. That's a very important show of respect, and it tends to be very appreciated. That's why, as a general rule, it tends to be general managers that answer those reviews every morning. Now, be timely, as we already said, answer them if possible every morning. You read the reviews that have been left the day before, and you take your time and answer on that same morning, whatever review is there that you consider needs to be answered. And finally, and most importantly, treat negative reviews carefully. Basically, acknowledge, apologize, and thank. If you think the review is actually non-trustful, take it with TripAdvisor or with Booking.com. If you take your proofs to them, they will probably, if they come to that conclusion, they will take the review out, but don't discuss that directly online. However, what is important as well is that you describe how you will correct the issue. And whatever compensation you may take in some specific cases, if you consider that is appropriate, never discuss that online. It's better if you take it privately and send a private email to that guest saying, so we're sorry you had such a bad experience, would like to, invite you to come back to our hotel for a free dinner or whatever. Just do it offline. Don't make that part of the conversation. And with that said, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go into the dashboard where we are going to start looking again. we're here again with the three widgets we saw yesterday. We actually didn't go into this one yesterday, so I'm going to put it as well on year to date so we see exactly what we need to see. First of all, we need to choose a tracking KPI. And obviously the recommendation is that we use the review performance index, which is here, 95.5%. As we discussed yesterday, this is absolutely very good for a hotel, and normally the index you get to see are much lower than that. But the benefit of this measure is that because it is based on quantitative scores that are left in the reviews, that's the 1, 3, 4, 5 stars, or 1 to 10 points, etc., that every review carries, the overall score tends to be stable and not fluctuate too much over time. And it tends to be a very good tracking measure for your efforts. So my recommendation is, if you're going to set an improvement target, choose this one. Now, for example, here you would say, how much is a good improvement target? Obviously, when you're at 95%, just getting to 96% may be quite an effort because you're already very high. Now, normally for a hotel that sits in the area of 70% score, a reasonable target is somewhere between 3–4% over a year. That's an increase that is quite reasonable, and it's good to start with. It will give you achievable targets that maybe you can even reach before the end of the deadline, which will give you an extra incentive to go for more in the next period. Now, nevertheless, it's important that we take into account these two other KPIs. Now, these KPI, as we explained the other day, is a little bit more fluctuating. It depends actually on the sentiment of what is said inside every review. And it's run by complex routines of artificial intelligence that actually try to process the text and understand how the person writing the text was feeling. This makes it less stable for KPI tracking exercise or for setting objectives or targets. Nevertheless, it needs to be tracked as well, because normally it tends to correlate with the other one, but deviations always have a meaning. So you always have to track if this goes below or ahead of that one, and you will need to look inside for negative or positive aspects that justify that difference. We'll look at that afterwards in a minute. Now, third and most important, you also have a KPI here that is relevant, and that is the number of reviews. Now, you may be asking, what is a good number of reviews over a year? And I would say, let's start with the low numbers. Below 50, you're certainly on a very low range. This is where you're actually running a risk of having so few reviews. Now, from 50 to 150, it starts to be a reasonable number. And from 150 to 300 over a year, it's a fairly good number. You can see that it's still less than 1 review per day. So it's not really a lot of reviews, but that's already a big number. Now, there are hotels which go up to the 1,000 per year, 2,000 per year, but those are very specific flagship properties that draw a lot of attention online. Normally, anything above 150 is already a good score, and 300 is a fairly good score. In this case, this hotel, it's on year to date 283, is close to getting to the 300 on the year. So again, it's a hotel that's performing fairly well. Now, here we get into the second problem we were addressing. How can I read and answer reviews in one place without having to go to all these different websites where they are left by our guests? And this is, and I'm going to go now into the widget drill down. This widget is the one that will help us with that task. Now, here you can see the reviews on a year-to-date basis of a certain site. Now I can scroll down and I can scroll down and actually access all the reviews, but I'm going to leave it here because basically this is enough for me. Now I have to make one comment here. You can see that these are Facebook and Twitter comments that are actually left by a hotel himself. We are here in a demo site and I don't feel comfortable sharing reviews from a hotel with an open audience. If you want to check the reviews of your hotel, you just have to go into the dashboard and check them for yourself. Today, as I run this exercise, I'm gonna keep here just neutral postings on social media, not real reviews, because I think this protects also the privacy of our customers. Now, you might be saying, so it also collects posts from the hotel as well, and the answer is yes, it does, and that is important because they are part of the conversation. So a post in the hotel in Facebook may then generate answers from the guests, so it's always good to have everything in the same place, and the same stands for Twitter. Now here in the widget, you see something that's very interesting. It's the standard calendar date selection that you have across all the dashboard. What that means is that enables you to search for a specific review or set of reviews in any date, whether in, let's say, in, if I click on custom, I can go and say, well, I want to see those in that specific week, or those in that specific day, whatever. I'm going to return to year to date as we were, but this lets you basically search for your whole repository of reviews and look for specific moments in time where you want to understand what happened. Another very interesting way to select your reviews is actually by whether they're positive, neutral, or negative. You can imagine very quickly that I would like to understand the few negative reviews that I have and go through them to extract actually what is happening. Same could happen with the neutral or with the positive ones in some cases. I also have the ability to search by languages. There I have only 2 languages, Polish and English, but normally a hotel may have a much wider variety of languages from which to pick for, and you may be interested in actually understanding, well, how are my French customers actually reacting, or how are my German customers reacting? Besides the fact that if you have multi-language reviews, there might be different people looking at the different languages, and you need to give them an easy way to tier them so that each can do their bit. Finally, you can also, of course, select them by source. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TripAdvisor, and Google are the ones available here. And I can say, well, let's look specifically at what's happening in Twitter because I want to understand that part. Okay, now these filters can be combined in any way to actually let you select very specific moments and very specific types of reviews to understand what is actually happening. This is the kind of tool you need, not only to read your reviews every morning and answer them, but also to be able to then drill back into your repository and start understanding the overall picture of what's happening in your hotel from the point of view of your guests. And this is very important because, as you understand, reviews contain a full treasure trove of indications and comments about how your hotel to improve their business performance. And it's normally a very recommended process that you currently regularly drill through your reviews and try to understand the specific aspects by selecting and tiering over them. Okay, now this is the tool that basically will help you check your reviews, understand what you need to answer, and also check any detail you need to understand about what the customers, the guests, are commenting about your hotel. Let's go now to the last point then, which is basically we've understood our targets. We've understood how we can read and answer our reviews on a regular basis, and also how we can exploit all that information to understand what's happening in my hotel. Now, the next step is the following. How do I actually identify the points where I'm going to focus my effort to improve my reputation, and how do I then track that results are being delivered? And the best place to do that is the sentiment analysis widget. Let me show you in a second. Let's go to the widget drill down. And as you remember, here we have first track a graph with the sentiment evolution. And then down here, we have on a day-by-day basis, a characterization of the different aspects of my hotel service that may be mentioned or appraised in that specific day by every view. So looking down in this calendar, what I can see is first where I'm having good and bad reviews as regards the different services I am providing in my hotel. And we already highlighted the other day that basically the area where we see more trouble is, for example, in services. So if I were to improve my hotel reputation scores, what's the first thing I would do? Well, I would start checking what happened this day. Let me scroll here. The Saturday and the Wednesday, 15th of January, and the 27th of January. Naturally, we're here in a demo mode, so I am not going to drill down into them. But when I go down into those, I will see what are actually the problems resulting in a service failure. And what I could do is, out of all that information, I would know what is the plan I need to set in order to correct that issue. And then what is the department I need to speak with in order to correct that issue. But what is more, on an ongoing basis, as that issue is corrected, I may ask for first some KPI metrics of how that is at source. But second, I should also start to see here that these negative reviews do not appear anymore. Now, this will be a first signal that my correction efforts are working. But the dashboard can do actually more than that, because that might be easy for some of the services. Let's say I have a complaint about the coffee. Well, I can test if the coffee is good. All I need to do is go down to the cafeteria and take a coffee. But if I have a complaint on the stability of Wi-Fi, for example, that's a lot more complex to test, because it may be happening only at certain moments, only for certain guests, only in certain areas of the hotel. I would need a more complex tool to get an overview over that. And that is precisely where the dashboard actually provides those tools. And the same could be said for digital services, which may be happening in the different rooms, and also for things like, let's say, housekeeping or maintenance, where it is not easy to understand what might be failing. Is it a process? Is it associated to a certain person? Is it associated to a certain room? And there, again, if you have such a tool as a task manager or a housekeeping application or a maintenance application, then you will be able to track all that in the dashboard and understand from there if those KPIs are fulfilled, and also drill down to understand what is the specific issue that is causing all these negative reviews. So just to summarize, first, the dashboard not only lets me track the direct impact that those issues are having in the reputation index, and also then obviously understand how it is corrected, because that particular service will have its sentiment scores go up the moment that the correction is actually happening. But also it will let me drill into the specific service information through the other service widgets that I also have available, in order to understand what exactly is the problem and have a more accurate root cause analysis and identification that will carry a much more precise and effective correction to the issue. And this is where I am going to leave this today. I think it's been a very interesting session, and I'm looking forward to hear your questions. Thanks a lot.